Sometimes it works, and it looks like it's working today. Yay! Welcome to Geeks Kids, your bi-weekly or sometimes weekly. It depends on what's on TV at that time. Show about geeky things. I am Eric. I'm joined by Huck, and we're entering this little trip into Westeros because we are talking about A Night of Seven Kingdoms. Did HBO quietly just give us the best Westeros show since the first 4 seasons of Game of Thrones?
At least the first season,
I mean, the Red Wedding was good in season 3, right? That season was good.
Oh, of course. But as far as kind of just dropping us into this universe and having a really great first season, from beginning to end.
Yeah, that's fair. The first season was totally solid all the way through. Yeah, we're talking about A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, the smaller, quieter Dunk and Egg story that might actually be the smartest move this franchise has made in years. Based on the books by George R. R. Martin, the TV was created by George R. R. Martin and Ira Parker, and stars Peter Claffey as Sir Duncan, or Dunk the Tall, and Dexter Saul Ansell as his Squire Egg, and a host of other amazing characters that we will probably talk about when we get there. Hopefully I have everything labeled properly in these on these streams. We are live on YouTube Vertical and Twitch. But yeah, as always, we'll start with a spoiler-free discussion before we get into the nitty-gritty details. But first, I wanted to know how familiar you are, Hawk, with the story of Dunk and Egg. What did you think when HBO announced that they were doing a series based on these books?
Big confession, I haven't read the actual Dunk and Egg stories yet. So when I heard about it, I was like, I'd heard it was kind of a quieter story in comparison to Game of Thrones, so I wasn't quite sure what to expect. There were parts of House of the Dragon I enjoyed, but for the most part, I got a little confused, a little bored by the series, and that because it felt like kind of we're back into it again.
Yeah.
This was a very big surprise when I actually, watched it. As we were saying, it was surprising, the turns they took. It felt like Game of Thrones, the series, stylistically, camera-wise, very different. Lots of more edits, lots of comedic takes, and the non-diegetic music touches we were just talking about off camera. It was really adding up to something different. Plus the fact that we're watching this tale from a POV of one particular Game of Thrones character, but realistically we get 2 POVs only. In comparison to with Game of Thrones and that, which was just a multiplicity of characters and that feeding into a larger web of a story.
Yeah.
This is simple.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, keep going.
I'm good.
You're good. Yeah, no. It makes sense. Game of Thrones and the Targaryen history books, that they're always from different perspectives. So you see lots of different POVs on those shows. There's so many characters. It's a cast of hundreds and thousands. But even the chapters themselves in those books, you get a different, viewpoint from different people. Yeah. Like Jon Snow might be the eyes of that chapter, or it might be one of
Sansa or Jamie,
exactly. So there's always changing. You need to keep a list with you just so you can be like, well, these are the characters that I have in this season, in this episode, or in this chapter. But yeah, I read the books. They're really small. They're novellas, so they're not super long. I read them.
There's only 3 of them, right?
3 right now that I remember.
Yeah,
because George R. R. Martin said there's gonna be more stories on the way, because George R. R. Martin, as we know, will do anything except write those last books in the Song of Ice and Fire.
From what I understand, he's given 12 stories, directly to Ira Parker, and that to develop into further seasons. And then one guy on Instagram asked, why didn't he write it down for the rest of us first?
It's true. He only wrote the first 3. And we will talk about the second one later on. But they're great reads. They were made into graphic novels. They're super quick. They're fun. They're more intimate. I actually wrote this in the outline that we're talking about. This felt more like a Marvel Spotlight. We had done Wonder Man a couple weeks ago, and that was a more intimate story as well about these 2 characters going through their lives.
And again, strict POV.
Yeah, exactly. So for anyone who's jumping in, this is the spoiler-free section. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is based on George R. R. Martin's Dunk and Egg novellas. Especially this season was based on the first one called The Hedge Knight, which is also the title of the first episode. It's set about 90 years before Game of Thrones, and instead of a palace and politics and dragon warfare, that type of thing, we're following just this lowly hedge knight, like the lowest of the low knights, Sir Duncan the Tall, and his squire Egg. It's smaller, it's quieter, it's more personal. Did this surprise you? Like, did you think that it was going to be this intimate, like a storytelling perspective?
Not that intimate. I understood they were much smaller in scope, as far as the stories and that, I did not think that the entire season would take place over one tourney, in like pretty much the span of, I think, maybe 2-3 days.
Yeah, a couple days.
Yeah, it was only a couple days that were really had with these characters, as opposed to like Game of Thrones, it's like realistically span months, like throughout one season. No, this was a very, very concentrated story, but at the same time, no less complex than like Game of Thrones story, we're, in the way we start with Egg and with Dunk.
Yep, for sure. I know a lot of people were wondering if, because it is a smaller scale show, it also had a smaller scale budget. From what we've heard from Ira Parker behind the scenes, I think they said they had a quarter for every dollar they would spend on Game of Thrones. I feel like that maybe made it feel more intimate and more connected to the characters. Like it felt more personal. Did you feel like it lost any of that Westeros connectivity? Like something, did it feel not Game of Thronesy at all?
The weird thing is, like I said before, stylistically, it still feels like Game of Thrones. It's like it can't help but do that. It's shot in pretty much some of the same places than that. So, but I understand like where they would save budget on this, being a smaller story, because basically they kept this entire thing out of a city, right? It's taken place mainly within the countryside. As far as I know, like it takes place within the Reach at the location is Ashford Meadows and that, but like it's all just country. It's like built sets, the tourney that we're going to see in it. So I can understand where they save the budget on that. But it rewards us with those same kind of dialogues that we would, Game of Thrones kind of built its reputation around, when it was just like 2, maybe 3 characters in a room talking. It had the exact same feel for me.
Yeah. And they may have had less money. They definitely had the best battle out of any of the shows. Any of them. Like, we'll talk about that in the spoiler section, but the big set piece of this season was astounding and like just jaw-dropping. It was something else. Although based on what we saw from the House of Dragon season 3 trailer, they're going to try and step up. Yeah. I don't know if you saw the trailer. We'll talk about that at the end.
I did see the trailer. Yeah, it looks great. Like I said, no disrespect to that show either in that, but this was so unexpected and wonderful.
There's something that I, at least as an audience member, I disconnect as soon as I start seeing lots of CGI. And that's not what we got in this. This was all raw and real. So it felt better. It felt better for me as an audience member. Like you can add a billion dragons and stuff, but you get a bunch of knights actually fighting each other in the mud. Yeah, I connect with that way more.
Oh, and plus, like like I said, stylistically, it's like everything was there in the costume design. It's got, we saw a lot of great pieces of armor and that throughout the entire tourney and that from all different factions of Game of Thrones and that lesser known factions, lesser known houses. We got to see their colors, their banners, and their designs.
So many apples. Hi, Dave, who's in the chat. I don't know which one it is. I think you might be on YouTube. Hi. That's crazy that you're on the vertical thing. That's neat. So let's talk about the leads, because this show lives and dies on Dunk and Egg. They are the main characters. They are our point of view characters. Dunk is physically imposing, but emotionally a little uncertain. Egg is small, sharp, and observant, but secretly he's much more important than he seems, which we won't talk about here. We'll talk about it in a little bit. What did you think of the chemistry between these two actors and their relationship on screen? Were there any others? We'll start with that. Yeah. What did you think of their relationship together?
Their relationship was great. They had a great amount of chemistry in that. It's like, and it was, comedically, it couldn't help but get a big jolt out of Egg being such a little tiny guy in that versus Peter Claffey's Dunk, who's like, good Lord. He is a giant. He was a former rugby player.
That makes sense.
A championship player in that, but but the chemistry between the two was amazing. Meeting as they did, Dunk pretty much underestimating Egg the entire time, and that Egg, being just wicked, a little mischievous in that, but in this wonderful, innocent, and really smart kind of way.
Yeah.
I love the chemistry together. I'll assume some of their videos and that, when the two of them were cast, they actually hung out for a day in that, and it was like, you should see the two of them having fun together. I think they ended up at a hockey game with them.
Oh, that would have been amazing. Watching their interviews is so adorable because you could tell that there's a real kinship between them. And that they had a real good, time bonding on set. I loved it. It shows that how much chemistry between two actors translates to the screen, because you could tell it's there. You can tell that they respect each other and that they have a general love for each other. It's so fun. Were there any other? Sorry, go for it.
Oh, they kind of share, both actors share the kind of experience of being cast in a huge role for pretty much the first time in their lives, and that Peter Claffey is only 29, so I don't know any other work of his in that, but the fact that he kind of comes out of nowhere to take on this big role, and and this kid, he basically, this is the first thing he's ever done, so they kind of share that cold naivety to the experience, and I think they kind of bring that into their performances.
It's so wild. That's amazing. Having your first big break being this, and being so critically acclaimed at this point and loved by the audiences. This Game of Thrones is really shooting up there in the ranks of the series that have gone on screen. Were there any other standout performances? I know we're not going to talk about many specific other characters, so now's really a good time to talk about.
One guy in particular stood out for me was Daniel Ing, playing Lionel Baratheon. I remember him from the Netflix series The Gentleman. He played the one brother in that, and there is a scene in the first episode of that series that everybody should watch, and that basically it was him in a chicken costume and that, having to perform for a gangster he owed a bunch of money to, and comedically it was just amazing. I still think about that today. But
I did not recognize him from that, which is crazy. He was a total chameleon in this role. I would like to see him in other things, because I want to see if it's just he just disappears in every role like that.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
But he really adds something to the role of Lionel Baratheon. There are some really good performances here. Standouts.
I like Sean Thomas.
I'm gonna say Danny Webb for his role as Arlen of Pennytree.
Yes, he was so good.
Yeah,
and just like a baby holding an apple. So you'll understand when you see the series. He was so good. I don't know about you, but at the beginning of the series, even in the book, you don't think too much of him, right? He's just this lowly knight. He's just he's like a knight, but sadder, like Rowan says, right?
His story seems a little sad, but he's also such a mercurial man, even after we've seen the events of this series, right? We see him in certain scenes. He doesn't talk a whole lot.
No. But
he's more just defined by his actions, and his relationship to Dunk, which in itself is a very strange relationship. He cared for Dunk and that, but Dunk still saw the worst of him.
For sure. All of the Targaryens for me were standout performances. Like,
oh yeah,
who were the other ones? Aerion, Bright Flame.
Mm-hmm.
There was Baelor.
Oh, Baelor,
who was phenomenal as one of the sane Targaryens.
Aerion played by Finn Bennett, and Baelor played by Bertie Carvel. For anybody interested,
and then Harry Ashton played Daron, who was the drunken brother, and
yes.
And who's the uncle? I can't remember. Do I have him here?
Oh, Makar. Micah.
Also,
I think is it Makar or Micah?
It's Makar.
My father was Micah.
Makar. Yeah, I mean everyone keeps saying
Sam Spruill.
I recognize him from something, but I can't remember. Sam
Spruill plays him.
Yeah, he's there he is, Makar. Oh my god, my list is not alphabetical by character; it's alphabetical by actor. So I'm just like, which one is you? It's very confusing. I did not organize this properly.
That's okay. I got it up here too. It's pretty easy to, there's a lot of standouts here in that, not big names in that, but definitely people I recognize. Mm-hmm. Yusuf Kirkor playing Steely Pate, the armor.
Steely Pate, yeah.
I recognize. I swear I've seen him in at least 3 or 4 things. And
the British actors are always, always there.
They're just everywhere.
I actually really liked Kara Harris, who played Lady Gwyn, who was that little princess who scared Dunk went in the castle.
Yes,
she was hilarious.
Yeah, she seems so.
Only 3 scenes or something, but she was brilliant in all of them.
Yep. Wars have started for less.
All right. Let's see. Where do I go from here? Well, you know what? We might as well go into the full thing. So, as you know, we're going to go into spoilers. We're not talking about every episode. We are going to be discussing, the bigger picture. So, if you don't want to get spoiled, go watch the show. It's great. We're going to just talk about themes and what we thought about the series as a whole. And yeah, that's what it is. So this season, the Hedge Knight, it is based on a tournament, as you find out in the first episode. It's this really the central storyline and the backbone of the season. What I love is that it's not just a spectacle of the tournament, which we do get, but it's also political, it's personal, it's dangerous in just like little grounded ways. Like you see them practicing and people are still getting hurt. What did you think of the tension of setting a whole storyline based around a tournament?
Like this is the way you make it work, because we only got a little glimpse of tourney culture back in the original series, right? With I can't remember which episode it was, but it's very small. And it's only, but like the tourney culture in Game of Thrones is so important to them, right? It's like it's like all the defining memories of knights and that, personal memories and like, their kind of personal glory are made is on the tourneys, and we hear a lot about that in Game of Thrones. We never really saw them betting in a whole season on one. Actually pretty smart when you think about it. If you're Game of Thrones fans, you must have like a Jones to see like the full extent of the tourney culture.
Of course.
And that's where they threw the budget for the set too. Is like it was much bigger. In Game of Thrones, it was very narrowly focused camera wise and that. But in this, it's like you just see everything associated with it, like how the economy springs up around them and that. How performers are there, like traveling in to like get their kind of slice of the pie and that. And the fields, we'll get to it later in that, but there's this amazing scene where the crowd kind of turns on the whole thing.
Yeah, they actually made a 360-degree set so that they could explore everything and they could, shoot any way they wanted. Like that's incredible. Like obviously it was for budget reasons as well, but like that's an amazing thing to do. The Ashford style tournament setting, the jousting, the high stakes jousting, champion on champion action it really reminded me of A Knight's Tale. Like that's what I thought of when I first was watching this.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I'm sitting there, it's like they have there's a bit of a pomp and circumstance, right? Because all the knights have to go up and they have to pick their knight, and they have to show off. There's a statesmanship that they have to do.
Sure.
Right out there. There's
and like you said, there's lots of politics behind it too.
Yeah, there's politics based on who do we pick? Like does this knight pick a lesser knight so that he can just like get him out of the way, and we see Arion like actually just humiliate one knight. Like it's brutal. And then we see that Dunk is trying to find one of the nobles to back him because he's not a a known knight or
no, as he says, he was knighted on the road by Sir Arlen before his final act before his death was to knight Dunk, his loyal squire since he was basically a child, like of 12 or 13 maybe. And yeah, he comes from absolutely nothing except for the word of a knight that nobody really seems to remember, even though he's a veteran of like multiple wars. I mean, he was 60 when he died, and he was fighting his entire life, It's nobody remembered him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like they were saying, there were hundreds of hedge knights, right? Like, how could you remember just one? Although there was certain ones, like Baelor, he knew him. Yeah, which was amazing. Yeah, as a High Lord to remember one lowly hedge knight is incredible. Right.
It's also a big comment on the culture of that. It's like the High Lords and that. Yeah, they had hundreds of foot soldiers. They thousands of foot soldiers. And it's the ones that actually cared about them, like Baelor and that, who actually remembered.
Yeah. I also love that when we having this tournament doesn't always mean that you see just the tournament. You get to see the downtime. You get to see them partying and relaxing. Like that's where we got to see the Baratheon side of things. Like we see that. I guess it's a family tradition to just get plastered and drink and be merry, right? Like I loved seeing the downtime, seeing the puppet shows, the armorers, the parties, and what did you think of this aspect of the show?
Oh, it's so good. Like, to see because we spent so much time with the High Lords and Game of Thrones and that it was kind of great to kind of muck it up with the people. Lionel Baratheon is just like, he's just one of those, lords of the people and that. He likes dancing, he likes singing, he likes drinking. One of the big things, that whole strawberry tart thing that Dunk was eating at the tent, and I want to really try one of those. Yeah, everything looks so lush, right? As far as food and just the way they he orchestrated the band, I love that we took this kind of intimate, dive into the common culture. Something we only rarely saw in Game of Thrones, and usually it was at the worst points of that.
I want to go back a little bit because we were talking about how Sir Arlen knighted Dunk on the road there, like more or less before the thing. That's actually a change in we find out that Dunk actually wasn't knighted by Arlen, right? That's not in
at least intimated that, right?
Yeah. Oh no, I think he said that it didn't. Yeah, he intimated in that. But in the books, it pretty much doesn't seem that way. So it's sort of a change in the book. What did you think of this whole idea that Dunk is sort of an illegitimate knight trying to find his legitimacy through this?
Right. Because he's been such an honorable knight, throughout, it's like he's never let his, want or needs or anything dictate the course of his actions throughout this entire series. Right. And then when you get to the end and you get that reveal that basically Sir Arlen died before actually knighting him, it's a huge, it's a really big thing to add to this character, because we love it. We love his humbleness and his naivety, but now it's we think he's doing this basically out of what? Out of guilt? Basically,
more.
It's a sense of honor, but also basically I did everything I was supposed to. I'm entitled to this, but at the same time,
I like that though, right? He seems more
exactly
simple
Yeah.
I don't think he would ever think that, right? He seems like such an honorable and like innocent dude. Like this character is supposed to be like 19 or 18 in the books, right? So
Right.
having Peter being a little bit older makes it a little bit different, but you know, I don't mind that time change or that age change. I always pick. He seems like the best of the best. When Egg talks about knights of old and talks about the valor and the honor, and we're going to talk about honor and stuff a little bit later. But I think that the epitome of that is Sir Dunk the Tall, right? Like we see that building through him. We see Arlen teaching him that as we go through all the backstories. And I love that in Game of Thrones. What's his name? That dude that died at the first Joffrey. Joffrey was going through the book of
yes, I always think about that. Right.
And he's like, Sir Dunk the Tall, 4 pages. He must have been something, right? And you're like, we're not even at any of the first page, right? Like that's amazing. Like to think of where he goes from this lowly knight that's just trying to, really at the beginning of the story, he's just trying to find a lord that will take him in so that he can serve them, right? Not be a hedge knight, just be a full-on knight. And he finds honor in being just a hedge knight, like helping anyone. Like I love that. That's such an amazing like storyline for him.
Sure, because it's contrasted with the fact that at the very start of it, he was trying to even get legitimacy for the name of Sir Arlen Pennytree, and that Dunk would be the one 90 years later in that to be like heralded as like one of the greatest knights of the Seven Kingdoms. 4 pages, that's a lot for back then.
Yeah. Right. What did Jamie get? Maybe a page, maybe half a page.
Oh, he got like a paragraph, I think.
Maybe. Well, they have to talk about the before times, the bad times. This tournament really culminates in the second last episode. Like every Game of Thrones series, there's only so many episodes, and this one there was only 6. Like it was a very short season, but episode 5 was incredible because it was based on a trial that had never happened in 100 years based on at this point in time. So we see Dunk getting into some trouble. He snaps when he sees Arian hurting a puppeteer. So, he strikes and hits this person who ends up being like the prince, right? So
he knew him. They had met before, they had talked. He knew he was striking a prince, but at the same time, the prince was doing some pretty bad stuff to a girl he really liked.
But even if it was just a regular person, I think Dunk would have jumped in. Like he's honorable like that. He says that knights are supposed to protect the weak, right? They're supposed to protect the people. And that's why Baelor joined him, right? So sorry, I'm jumping ahead, but yeah, like I really like Dunk as a character, so it makes me excited to talk about it. So we get as is the right, he could offer trial. He can ask for trial by combat because if they didn't and he went against the accused, he would have lost a hand and a foot because he struck him and kicked him, right?
Yeah.
So Arian, being a little shit that he is, asked for a trial by 7, and which means 7 knights versus 7 knights. The winner, the gods pick who's the rightful person. So we get this incredible sequence of events where Dunk finds a couple knights that he could, join. Like his Fossaway friend joins him. Tries to get his cousin to join him. Obviously, Lionel Baratheon joins him because they become
that whole scene with the cousin, because when we were first introduced to him, I believe that's Raymond Fossaway.
Raymond Fossaway, yeah.
And Raymond is the younger one.
Raymond's
right?
the friend, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Then the other Fossaway, who I can't remember his name.
Which one? I got the whole list here. Where is he? God damn it. Anyways, the first Fossaway, the older one.
Stefan
Fossaway, right? He is a prick, humiliates his cousin on the tourney and that pregame, hijinks and that, but challenges Dunk, blah blah blah. But then like when Dunk turns to him and he gives him the whole thing about, it's like, how it's like, he's an honorable knight, that, this Foss boy actually believes in all the, protecting the same values as Dunk, right? And also is interested in getting a shot in at the Targaryens and that. And you think like this is turning around for him, and then later on to see what happens on the field.
Yeah.
Same guy says, basically turns into like joins his enemies.
I made a better deal. Like you sit there, you're like, this guy's a little fucking prick. Obviously.
Yeah.
I can't remember if he made
the game of a staple of Game of Thrones is like the shifting allegiances between houses.
Always. What did you think of this whole trial by 7? The whole combat, the brutality of the match, and it eventually the aftermath with the death of Prince Baelor.
I mean, like, there's a lot to cover. First off, I'm giving
you all so that you can just talk and I'll just listen.
Okay, this was Arian being a coward. It's like, yes, as like Sir Dunk would have obviously elected trial by combat, and Arian counters that by trial of the 7 because he knows, it's like he, even though he's a Targaryen, he's been trained all his life, and I look at that big guy really shook him, so this is him like just marshaling forces around him, try and protect him from him. The actual combat, when we actually see it, Baelor joining with Sir Dunk was amazing. The combat itself was just like incredibly brutal. We got a lot of great like camera work, building right up to the event of the horses launching down those laneways. We got this great POV shot, like when Dunk puts his armor on and puts his helmet over his head, and that we see like just his narrow field of vision and like the huffing and like the echoing of his own breath inside the helmet. It was stylistically, it was just like, it was peak, like directing for an episode. Conversely, in that that episode hit a monumental peak in ratings on the internet, approaching a near perfect 10 rating.
It was a perfect 10. It was a perfect 10.
It was. For a minute.
Breaking Bad fans, what are you doing? You ruined 2 episodes by doing this.
Can you believe that? An episode from 13 years ago, and an army of people that decided, no, there can only be one.
And now there's none. You ruined it. Ruined it.
Yep.
I loved the I was listening to Ira Parker talk about this sequence because in the books, the fog rolls in. They're like, that's good because it'll help, mask a little bit of the choreography. But like, because of the lack of budget, they had to make it more grounded, more, visceral. So a lot of the POV shots were meant because, they could only spend so much money. And it also makes it a little more claustrophobic because once you put on that helmet, like you said, there's only so much you can see. Your breath is right up on your face. Like everything is so visceral and real at that moment. And then to see, like, really, we just follow Dunk the whole time as he's like, sort of like trying to figure out where he is on it. He's getting hit all over the place. He's just like disoriented, right? It's brilliant choreography. The fights were brutal. Like, I don't think any of the wildling fights or any of the like anything like this has been as raw as what we saw in this. Like it was family on family too. Like you see the Targaryens fighting each other. The Kingsguard obviously couldn't hurt Baelor, but Baelor could hurt them, right? And then we see Baelor and Maekar fighting, and that's also like just incredibly. I don't know if you noticed that at the time, but you see 2 dragons fighting each other. Man, it was
a lot was happening. So I haven't really gotten back to that for the rewatch yet. I before the show, and that I actually went back and started from episode 1 again. So I managed to get all the way halfway through episode 3 before we started.
Nice.
So that one, I'm really looking forward to rewatching episode 5. Which I haven't been excited about doing a rewatch on a series, in a while. Yeah, but it
actually made me gasp when they showed the Morningstar hit Baelor's head. Because I didn't think they would do that, and then I saw it. I was like, "Oh no!" And then that's right before Dunk makes Arian, give up.
Yeah.
Like it's literally right before, it's the shot right before you hear his voice say, I withdraw my whatever he says, I withdraw my
I withdraw my claim.
My claim, yeah.
Yeah, my accusation, whatever, in that. But yeah, he made him his bitch. And that.
Yeah.
How about that whole sequence building up to that?
The get up,
like
get up.
Yeah, the get up and that, and him going back into his memories and everything in that. Like his, we saw that was when we saw the sequence of him. Was that him following him, or was I got a little confused on the timeline in that, but like. Him following Sir Arlen Pennytree in that for days after, being rescued by him.
I think there's some of that there, but
some of that's there, but yeah.
But the main crux was Egg just devastated and being like, you have to get up, and hearing his.
This was Dexter's little that was his best moment from the series for me, and that was the get up, but it was him like the weight, because like the kid just went nuts with that. Like I don't know, like God bless him in that, it's like getting out that high pitched scream in that.
Hopefully he didn't he didn't have to do that too many takes, because it was fantastic. The accusation. That's it. I withdraw my accusation. Thank you. Thank you, chat, for that. The aftermath of the tourney, we get to see what Prince Daeron had dreamt about, right? Had a vision about. We get to see a dragon dying on Sir Dunk. Did you think that it was going to be Baelor? Who did you think that vision was about when it was mentioned earlier?
I didn't know it was going to be that, because I got a little confused on like some of the characters and that, because I'd heard, Baelor, but it's like, no, that's not Baelor the Blessed, right? No, Baelor the Blessed.
This one's Breakspear. So Baelor Breakspear had gotten his name from a Blackfire Rebellion battle that happened years earlier, where obviously breaking spears. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, the way his death played out, and that I was a little haunted. That it was almost like history repeated itself, because I went back to one time when I was educating Tommen on kings, and like what makes a great king. Baelor was righteous and he was virtuous, and he was so righteous and so virtuous in that he couldn't foresee his own brother murdering him.
Yeah.
And in a way, this played out exactly in the same way.
Yeah.
The fact that he walked into that tourney not fearing, for his own life, which was a big mistake, because he knew his Kingsguard wouldn't hurt him in that, but like didn't count on his brother, and I think that somehow I think that's relevant to the story.
I also think that he thought the gods would be on his side, right? The Targaryens have always been like, well, we are the chosen ones. Maybe nothing bad will happen, right?
Yeah. Also, armor Pate, or Steely Pate, he called that when he was talking about the helmets, when Dunk first asked him about making him armor for him. He said, he's like, I can make our helmets look like wild animals or pieces of fruit, but they're good hard steel. They'll do its job. And what did Baelor take off when that was one of those ornate, immaculately ornate helmets. That did not save him. Dunk took so many more blows, right? He took a lot of blows to the head that that whole fight, it was scary. But damn.
We got something in the chat. Makar didn't do it on purpose. He said he couldn't even remember the hit that killed him, and wondered if that makes it better or worse.
Right?
That's fair.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know, but it was an amazing turn of events that really surprised me, and in a way didn't, it was almost like prophecy.
Something had to happen, right? It couldn't just be Dunk winning. This is George R.R. Martin.
Yeah.
You can't have a totally happy outcome
No,
obviously.
no. I mean, like as bad as things were for the Targaryens, like in House of the Dragons, and that this is the worst time period for the Targaryens. You know, they haven't had dragon power in ages. You know, their whole claim to the throne was, you know, by bloodline. You know, which was kind of weak at best in that, because you can see like there's a lot of foment and like, you know, unrest about, like, you know, from in the common people about the Targaryen still ruling. You know, why should they still be ruling in that? They don't have dragons anymore.
And they had just gone through the Blackfire Rebellion, which was another Targaryen on Targaryen, you know, conflict, which just seems to always happen. So it's that is interesting that there. I'm trying to think of where I want to go with the Baelor thing, but there's something sad about Dunk finally finding that, you know, that lord that would take him and be his knight, and then for it to immediately get taken away. But that's also so very George R. R. Martin.
Oh yeah, that's perfect George R. R. Martin. Yeah, you think you're happy now? No. You don't get to be happy.
No. Let's go on to Dunk as a protagonist, because much like the books, he's our main POV character into the story. He's insecure. He's not really a traditional noble person, but he's probably more honorable than most. He's constantly questioning whether he deserves to wear that armor and to be that knight. Do you think that's what made him as a strong lead character? Like, what do you think what makes us really get drawn into this character as a lead?
I mean, like, you know, first up, I think like he is still haunted by Sir Arlen Pennytree. You know, that's like, you know, living up to the legend of him, living up to the lessons that he taught him in that. But like, you know, at the same time, you know, Sir Arlen seems like a ghost that haunts his life. You know, we get that a little bit in that final scene. You know, when the horse diverges across the field and that, the white one.
I like that. I like that scene.
Maybe
a lot.
I think that. Yeah,
I think that's him leaving that
that's
legacy behind, right? He doesn't have to live up to Arlen anymore.
Yeah, a lot of this season was about him and that, you know, questioning about living up to that, you know, and finally attaining something that even Sir Arlen didn't. You know, it's like, you know, one of the reasons Sir Arlen was not remembered was because he never won a tourney, ever. You know, the only reason Baelor remembered him because it took him like, you know, 4 lances to finally unhouse him from his seat. Yeah, Sir Arlen told me 7. I love that scene.
I want to go back a little bit on the armor thing. Pyro Slasher in the chat has said Baelor's helmet also wasn't his; it was his son's armor, which is why it didn't fit him properly. Right. Oh, and that scene was also brutal when his son was like, many sons have died in their father's armors, but I can't think of like he was like, I can't.
Father's died in his son's armor. Oh, that's right. Brutal. Because it was such a last minute change that you know, the kid up there and that. So Baelor did it himself, but he obviously hadn't planned on being in tourney, so he had to borrow the kid's armor.
Oh yeah, that's a great catch. I totally forgot about that. And although I just watched the finale today. Yeah, sorry. Did you want to say anything else about Dunk, like about him and?
I mean, the backstory was crazy. You know, he's like, he's simple, obviously, and you know, there was a whole thing about, you know, people have always said, "Oh, I'm stupid," and that, you know, and then just going quiet after that and not saying like anything else. Yes,
is there more to this story? No, there isn't.
He's a little dim, you know, but he plays it nice. He plays it well, you know. He's not unwise as far as the ways of the world and that, you know. It's like he's just, you know, in a situation that, you know, he doesn't understand, you know. He's been on the road most of his life and that he's not used to, like, you know, mixing with highborns and, you know, different kind of, you know, socioeconomic classes. He sleeps under trees most of his life.
Yeah.
So, it's a total fish out of water story, and that, you know, but like the fact that like his motivations for doing this are, you know, they are inherently, you know, noble. You know, there's someone who believes in the stories, you know, without knowing all the gritty details behind them. You know, You know, they shit themselves when they die. They never write that in the stories. No, you know, he had a teacher who showed him, like, you know, the ways of a true knight. You know, it's like, you know, it's a rootless existence. It doesn't pay well, but, you know, at least, you know, he slept comfortably every night.
Yeah. I want to get your thoughts on that. We had touched upon the finale where Dunk takes the penny out of Arlen's hilt, the sword that he had, and places it in the tree. And then we see Dunk and Egg going down the road with Arlen's spirit beside him, and then Arlen's going off to the side. What did you think of this? This ending and sort of this new beginning for these two, because they're leaving Arlen behind, or they're going past. They're moving on from him.
It was so subtle, you know. The reason I was so confused earlier in that as to whether or not, like, you know, he had actually been knighted by Sir Arlen was that scene where, you know, watching him die underneath the tree and then suddenly waking back up, and that is like a good night finishes his story. That threw me off. I was thinking, is there more to it than that? Mm-hmm. This has to do with why I think, like, you know, Sir Arlen kind of, you know, still, you know, not haunts, but, you know, his ghost still lingers on, you know. The final scene was definitely about, you know, separation. It's like, you know, yes, it's like, you know, there would, you know, I want to live up to his legacy and that, but at the same time, you know, I'm writing my own now, because he got a taste of what it was behind the scenes. You know, he could have, you know, even after everything, and that he was still offered a position with the Targaryens, and he turned it down because, you know, we realized that wasn't the knight he wanted to be. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. What a beautiful end shot. Pyro Slasher in the chat has some really good things, comments every so often. They say, I think there might be a possibility that Sir Arlen also wasn't knighted. He doesn't fight like a trained knight. He never won a tourney. And as far as we know, he may not have knighted Dunk in the same way Dunk hesitated to knight Fossaway. That's so interesting. I never thought of that.
Yeah. It's the weird kind of dynamic in that, you know, it's like, yes, there are, you know, it's like Game of Thrones is about a world of nobilities and classes and, you know, lords and ladies and that, but at the same time, underneath, everybody knows it's, you know, none of that, it's all just made up. None of it's real. A lot of it is just illusion. It's just, you know, it's whether or not a family or even a single person's name is remembered. Yeah. You know, that's the only thing that actually counts in this world, you know. So if he was knighted, if he wasn't knighted, it really doesn't matter in the end.
I think really, like, even if he was knighted, what knights, and we saw in the last episode what the nobles worry about is their legacy, right? We saw Dunk wondering what is going to be said as he gets older. Like, what is he going to be, the one that had killed Baelor? And Maekar also thinks that, right? He's like, what are people going to say about me in the future? Is it, well, wait, maybe Baelor wouldn't have done that. Maybe we wouldn't have had this famine. Like, it's all about their legacy. Maybe we'll talk about that in the next section when we talk about honor and power.
Sure.
Our other lead, Egg, is you know, at first a very incredibly eager squire, but the audience quickly learns that this little squire is a Targaryen. He's Aegon Targaryen, the youngest kid, right? The reveal actually reframes the story from a knight trying to find his place at tourney to a knight who's defending his honor. What did you think of this portrayal? What did you think of his portrayal, the portrayal of Egg? And what did you think about this reveal and how it sort of reshaped everything for the rest of the season?
It was great. I don't know exactly when I had the inkling about it. You know, as I said, I haven't read the stories. I did know that there was something more to the story of Egg. And then, you know, somebody made a comment about, you know, like Maester Aemon dying in Game of Thrones and that, you know, and it's like, Egg, you know, calling out for the brother that, you know, the brother he loved the most. And that's when I realized, okay, yeah. I love the way it was, you know, slowly revealed. Again, episode 2, when the Targaryens arrived at Tourney, and that's the first inkling the audience has, because Egg really starts to worry, and then then you start thinking about, why is he bald? Why is any child bald in this world? That's not sickly.
We don't know. And then very little.
But the actual way it came together was fantastic. It was like after Sir Duncan taught gave Aerion his licks and that I honestly thought Dunk was going to be taking on a lot more guards, but no. Then once the guards came in, they quickly overpowered him, and that was Dunk. Aerion wanted his pound of flesh from right there. So we get the reveal of Aegon in that he is actually Aegon Targaryen, and then in the fact that he saves Dunk.
Yeah.
Which it was a wonderful twist for that episode,
and it really secures his place as his squire. Like later on, there's the loyalty that you see between these two characters, which I love. What did you think that it would take such a wild turn at the tourney? Did you think that there would actually be a giant trial, or did you have an inkling that it would head this way, or did you just think, oh, well, maybe it's just going to be a tourney where Dunk actually ends up just winning a bunch of matches and being this hero?
Once he hit Aerion, and I knew things were going to go bad. It's like you don't hit a prince. Despite how the nobility and everything is just kind of an illusion, and that it's still something that everybody adheres to, and that. And he struck a prince who now wants a pound of flesh from him. If not his life. He was about ready to break that woman's fingers, and that just for putting on a play. The actual events of that play. We should go back. We should talk about that in a bit. But
we'll talk about it now. Go for it.
Okay. I didn't quite understand what that play was referring to, in that a warrior in a strange kind of armor with a mirrored shield, and that fighting the dragon. I can't remember who that was supposed to be.
So apparently this is I can't remember totally perfectly. Maybe we'll get a hit in the chat, but this is from the Age of Heroes, where there's dragons, and they're not Targaryen dragons, they're like wild dragons, and then we have a hero that fights it and dies, but we get a prince who thinks he's an actual person who's a dragon reborn or of the lineage of dragons, so he takes offense to any dragon dying, even though it's before the Targaryens ended up on those shores, right? That's basically what happened. He just was like, no, you can't show a dragon getting hurt, even though that was thousands of years ago.
The madness was always in that bloodline.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna read another comment. The actor who played Egg is really talented. The scene where he had the knife and Maekar diffused his son's emotions, making him drop the knife, is really not easy to portray, especially without any words. Oh man, that scene was brilliant. I remember that whole sequence leading up to him dropping the knife, when he's sitting in his bed and trying to figure out his place in the world. And then he goes to the mirror and starts seeing his hair coming back and realizing that, he is a Targaryen.
Yeah.
And he takes the knife, the fish
It's
knife.
been such a...
Yeah, no, go for it.
Yeah. It's been such a journey with this kid, since his introduction and that, it's like I mentioned how clever he was, and that, rewatching episode 1, you kind of dismiss him when you first see him in that, but him at the bar, his way, knowing his brother was going to get dead drunk, and that was going to be his chance to escape.
He's just a little kid who wants to go see his horses run around, right?
But he doesn't act like any squire in that, because the first thing he does when he gets a hold of the horses is that he puts on the helmet and the thing and sits astride the horse. He goes through so much, and the kid is an amazing actor. He seems quite fearless in that. He works a lot with the horses in this show, and that I don't know if he has any prior experience to that or whatever. That's an intimidating thing working around horses.
Horses are giant and scary.
They are. One misstep and they can break all the bones in your foot.
My wife's her mom's friend is her mom's friend's husband is a horse midwife. So we would go over to this horse farm where they were breeding racing horses, and they are giant, and if they don't like you, they let you know. Because I remember they're like, you can offer this horse an apple, but if you see him pinning his ears, back up. I was like, okay, and then they start pinning his ears. I was like, I'm gonna go backwards now. You're scaring me. Horses are. I love horses. But they can be.
They're amazing creatures and that, but yes, they're terrifying to be around if you don't know how to handle them.
Yeah,
and even if you do,
I would love to one day. One day I'm gonna learn how to ride a horse, and it's gonna be amazing. And then I'll break a hip because I'll be old. But oh yeah, let's finish that scene where Egg goes into his brother's room and realizes that this is the moment. This is the only time I could take my, I don't want to say revenge, but he can take a grasp of his own future and make sure that he doesn't get like abused by his brother. Like it was brilliant. There's something scary because I think he could have done it. I think he could have killed his brother at that moment. I think he felt so lost and so like backed into a corner, like he had nowhere to go, and this is the best move forward. Oh.
Yeah, like kids in that family do not get like the same kind of childhood, that anybody else in Westeros gets. And that you remember Maester Aemon and that, it's like, back in the meeting of the Night's Watch when they were trying to figure out whether or not Jon should be executed, and Maester Aemon's walking away in that, and it's like, you believe him in that? And he's like, yes. And he's like, well, and how do you differentiate between lies and that? And he's like, I grew up in King's Landing, Egg says the same thing, that he grew up in King's Landing, even before his reveal. He has a firsthand knowledge of the inner workings of the families and that, what's expected, what's going to happen. He obviously hates his brother and that, and he hates what he is. The selfishness and the narcissism and the cruelty. And that kid's was ahead of him in line for the throne, right?
Yeah.
Two
or three in ahead. Like Pyro said in the chat, his father diffusing the situation. It was heartbreaking. He could see his child hurting, and it's his last son, and he knows it's his last son. That's pure. He says that later to Dunk too, right?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant scene. This actually plays really perfect into the next topic I wanted to talk to that. And that was about honor versus power, because this, at least to me, I think the main themes of the season really come down to what it means to be a knight and that idea of honor versus power, because we see Dunk questioning himself. Is he worthy of being a knight? And we see Egg wrestle with his own power as a Targaryen versus what he believes to be honorable actions. Is honor really real in this world? And because we see Dunk believing it, even though we see so many nobles without it. What are your thoughts on that?
It's such a.
This is a
question.
Giant topic that I just threw at your face right now.
Yeah.
You can just write out a thesis. That's what I basically just gave you, and then go back in a week.
Delve into the nature of morality and honor, and that in a place like Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
It's the whole question of the series. Can honor exist in a place like Westeros? It was the central driving theme of the original series, and its issue is pretty much, it's no less examined in this. In fact, it's even more examined because we do have someone who pretty much fits that definition of honorable, and that is Dunk. It's like throughout his motives have been pure. When he's deciding what to do after Sir Arlen died, in the beginning and that, he's like, I could sell all three of you and eat for 2 years, eat well. But after that, it just probably end up as a life as an outlaw. And that, that's what Sir Arlen taught him. It's like you take the easy route, easy money, and that you're going to wind up, walking down this path. He chooses a much harder road, but in order to do that, he has to play the game, the whole game. Getting validated, getting on those lists, willing to risk like his entire income, which is basically those horses and the armor on his back. If he loses, it's brought up quite a bit. If he loses those tourneys and that, he loses everything. Every worldly possession he has, which is not a lot. So for him, it's honor. It's trying to find an honorable path in order to survive, and do the thing that, he's pretty much only been taught how to do. He doesn't have any other skills. He was a knight squire for many years to someone who of no acclaim. So he is starting out on his own.
Yeah.
And it's his decisions along the way, which, convinced me that, he is as close to that legend, right?
Yeah.
As close to the legend as anybody.
And I think that's what Egg sees in him, right? That he sees that honorable thing. And that's why when Daeron talks to Dunk at the funeral about how Arian wasn't always that bad, and how they'll be sure to make Egg into a real man or something like that. You see that whole idea of power corrupting and absolute power corrupting absolutely. Like that's the moment where Dunk is like, I can keep him a good man. Like, what did you think of that? Like that moment, that was the turning point, really, when he was like, I have to take Egg and make him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, it's like, he obviously cares about Egg at that point, it's like, and, it must've been tempting, to be, it's like, you'll be his, he'll be squire to you under our house and that. But no, again, those uncompromising, morals take hold.
Yeah.
He's going to be a knight, but at the same time, he's going to, he's seen what it is to be like in favor of these houses and what it takes. Yeah. So he'd rather be a hedge knight, and he knows that kind of life, can make somebody like Egg into a good man because, again, as I said, the Targaryens at this point are just isolated, aristocrats. They've lost touch with the people of Westeros. Imagine, this is how Egg would become a great king, is to go out, and live among them. This is Don Quixote. This whole story.
Yeah, meeting the people where they are, right?
Yeah.
To be with them, to see what they go through. Because as a ruler, you can sit on your throne and just dole out things. That's what what's his name, Baratheon didn't want to do. He didn't. It was boring because he just doles off like things. He's like, okay, I'll write this decree and I'll deal with these farmers. He doesn't want to do that. He just wants to drink and have parties. And that's not the type. That's not the type of person Dunk wants Egg to be. He wants them to see what the people go through, and he wants them to have that empathy. And a lot of our leaders in the real world should go through this and understand this, but they don't. Well, we won't go too political on this.
Darn politics.
And we almost lost the Egg that we'll eventually get because, like Pyro Slasher said in the chat, like, could you imagine what would happen if Maekar wasn't in that room to stop Dunk? Yeah. Right? He wouldn't. It would just. It would be.
It'd just be more of the Targaryen legacy in that, it's like, family against family in that, it's like the blood for blood that we know what the family is known for. That would have been the end of that child.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, what did you think?
But see, that's weird because we also we ourselves are cursed with a little bit of foreknowledge about Aegon and his rule, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't end well.
Yeah. Aegon the Unlikely, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. I let's go back to Egg because I totally forgot about him leaving his family to become this squire.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like Pyro Slash. I didn't think it was vague in the book because I didn't think that he had left without permission. I just thought that his father had given him permission, but Pyro in the chat is saying that the book left it vague whether Maekar gave Egg permission. I didn't think so. Or I thought he did. Actually, what I meant. So I like that the series totally was like, you know what, Egg just left. But I wonder if that can.
Is that? I remember somebody mentioning about a change to the ending of that, and I wonder if that's the change.
That was the change.
That was you. Okay. That's the one I thought. Was that the change you mentioned? Yeah. That is great. It's also. I think it's a kind of a common trait in George R. R. Martin's writings and that, because A friend of mine, when he was reading the books and that, he didn't see Loras and Renly, being a couple, and it's like, oh, HBO just did that, blah blah blah. And it's like, no, it's written into the book. It's just written in there so subtly that you don't notice it.
I need to reread it. Maybe Makar didn't give it.
It was a passage about how he wasn't spending his nights with his new wife that because he was constantly with Loras and that reviewing battle maps.
Yeah. But I for some odd reason, and it's been years since I've read these books. I could have swore that Makar agreed with Dunk that him being on the road would make him a better man. But I could be remembering wrong. It's been such a long time. But I do like that at the end we get Makar just being like, "Where's Egg? Where the fuck is he?" I thought that was brilliant,
and that's been built up to the character that we know. It's like he just leaves. It's amazing, like the independence in this kid. But again, it speaks to like him being way smarter beyond his years than he really should be. The fact that he just eludes his family, he takes off when he wants, and he knows how to hide. He's really good at hiding, actually.
I do wonder if, because there are apparently 8 more books or 8 more stories that we don't know. I do wonder if him leaving without his father's permission is going to be a roadblock in Dunk's life. I assume it's going to be.
It's probably going to be a continuing issue,
Yeah.
But that's going to be interesting going into next season to see how they carry that. Is it going to be like, since we obviously are going to be sticking with the POV of Dunk and Egg, is it going to be like, like emissaries being sent to find him? Because
we'll get into theories about next season, even though I know it's going to be about. So it wouldn't be a stretch to say that A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is quite a different show. It's a world with no dragons and no apocalyptic wars. How does this work in Westeros? Does it work in Westeros? Like, and how does it compare to watching Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon? Like,
you know what it is? If for me, it is like, it's that change that, you have this whole established world, right? Let's compare this to Star Wars. It's like I would compare this to Andor as far as like in its place in the GLT, right? Not that the Game of Thrones, the writing was great in that. That was definitely for adults, but in this it works, more like kind of a focus feature, like a Marvel Spotlight. Let's call it that. It's compacted. It takes place from one character's point of view, but it absolutely works within the whole. Because it is just steeped and surrounded in everything that George R. R. Martin has spent over 30 years building. This elaborate world of families and intentions and history. The magic that once was, the magic that's gone at this point. It's a big world with a lot of stories that don't necessarily have to rely on our favorite characters. There's so many there's so many characters in that, and so many things to talk about in this world. I remember talking Dave during one podcast was talking about why don't we have a series of Robert's Rebellion, which would be amazing. I would love to see a series built around Robert's Rebellion.
Oh my God. Or at least just a mini series, right? I would be down with that. I gotta be honest, like I like not seeing the supernatural. I like not seeing the fantasy of this. I like having the grounded realness of this. It felt better to me. I felt more connected to to these characters more than any of the characters from Game of Thrones or any of the characters from House of Dragons. I cared for these characters more than any of those characters. Any of them.
And that's the thing, is like it's hard to make magic strike twice, or lightning, strike twice. Like with Game of Thrones, like that first season really did a great job of with its casting, its character developments, By the end, we loved everybody. It's like we loved all those characters. We loved all the Stark kids. We had our favorites. We loved Ned, and that's why, like, it hurt. Like seeing him die at the end of that series. In this, they really have like struck some gold with their choices in casting, with the writing, the way everything is going, the direction, keeping it small and intimate. But the chances that they've been taking, because there's been a lot more of comedic tones to it, both in the direction and in the dialogue between the characters. It's such an unlikely success, but it's easily tapping into that same kind of energy, of the original series.
Mm-hmm. I just out of curiosity, because it entered my brain as you were talking about Ned Stark. Was it more painful to see Ned Stark die, or was it more painful to see Baelor die in this series?
It's still Ned, because Ned? It's like for the uninitiated watching that series, on its first run back in 2011, who hadn't read the books, and were just loving this character and that, and like loving the intrigue and the mystery and that, and where is this going to go? And then like seeing episode 9, it's like, what's happening here? Wait a minute. Why is nobody stopping this? Come on. Like Ned Stark dying is still one of the single biggest, sucker punches, like, for anybody who hadn't read the books and was watching that show for the first time. It's like, I still watch people in that to this day who haven't watched it, who are watching that and like, just breaking down to tears.
Yeah.
Knowing that, like this show had some serious stakes and that they would kill off a main cast member like that.
I remember watching that episode. Like I had already seen it and I was watching it with Meg later, my wife. And I was just like, it started happening. I was just like watching her reaction.
You're more interested in watching her reaction.
Yeah. I did the same thing for the Red Wedding. Because we were watching it live at that point, and I knew, obviously I read the books at that point, and I knew it was happening. And then I saw her reaction for the Red Wedding, and that was the last episode she ever watched of Game of Thrones. She was like, no, I can't do this anymore.
It's hard, not just because of the violence, but because of like, how unfair it is to, it's a trademark of GRM, obviously, in that, but like, it takes a special person to, it's like, okay, cool. What happens next? It's like some people, like they see how unfair this world is, which it's accurate. It's an accurate depiction of like, the way the world works. Life is not always fair, to the people who deserve it. But that's it's
brutal. It's just brutal and grim, which is what I think I also really like this series, because a lot of it was Egg and Dunk being happy, just happy being together. Mm-hmm. Like I think it was such a different, like just a sense of the world, right? We don't really see people that happy. Like there's always something bad happening. So it was nice to see them just enjoying stuff, enjoying the tournament. Like when Dunk has Egg on his shoulders and that kid is just like loving seeing these knights. Like this is him at like a monster truck rally, right? That's what it is. It's him being like, oh yeah,
sure.
Look at this. This is amazing.
Oh, this is
WWE.
It's right? WWE. Like that one knight who came out and ripped off the fish head. Come on.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes, for sure. Pyro saying, so talking about, remember I was like, I can't remember the books. Pyro was saying, Maker just looked at Dunk and walked away. The next scene was Egg meeting up with Dunk in the book saying, my father says I have to serve you. In the second novella, Dunk asks, what did your father tell you? Egg replies, he said to never tell anyone who you are and keep your head shaved or covered. It is very vague, I guess, right? Because we don't outright know that Makar, good damn writing, making it not, and it's always from a point of view, right? We don't know what's real. Like we're getting that now. So that's cool. Pyro also said, I didn't read the books before the Red Wedding. When I saw it, I just left my wife in the room, went to the kitchen and started drinking. I mean,
that's fair. That's very fair reaction.
Totally fair. Oh man.
Unfortunately, I inoculated myself after the first season, and that I ended up reading all 5 books before the second season started.
Yeah. Oh, damn. I had read the first. I think what was the last two books? Anyway, the last two books I read when they were released, so I'd already read all the books before then.
Right.
I read the first book because our buddy Stu was like, "You have to watch this show. They just sent out the teaser. It's not coming out for another 2 years." And I saw the teaser and I was like, "Okay, I will read this book." And then I read the book. I was like, "Fuck, this is a good book." And then I read more, and then I was like, "Why isn't the next one out?" And then I actually got more novels, and then he just stopped writing them. So
Yeah.
Oh, that hurts. Thinking back how long ago that was. Oh my God. I was living with Stu. We were still in the student house at that time. That's how long ago it was. That's how long ago.
This will be the 15 years since Game of Thrones debuted.
God. And then they teased it 2 years earlier. So 17 years. Oh my God. There are university students. So let's talk about the big picture, because this show is doing fucking gangbusters, not just with the critics, but with the audience. And we all know how Game of Thrones audiences are. Although also the critics are pretty hand in hand, to be honest. So many people saw the last season of Game of Thrones, and rightly so, they were disappointed. I mean, cast members were disappointed. Obviously, people were going to be disappointed. And then while House of the Dragon has been a hit, and it has been a ratings and critical hit, there are a lot of criticisms about the pacing and the character focus. Right? Do you think HBO's learned from its past mistakes, or at least rebuilt the audience's trust in this Westeros brand with this show?
For me, it has, because I think it kind of, like I said, it seemed to have tapped into what I really loved about the original show, and that was like those people in those rooms having those conversations. There was something about it that just, it was next level. It's like it had all the trappings of a fantasy series and that, but at the same time, it was like the writing of The Sopranos, or a Breaking Bad. It was people interacting with each other in that in this particular way, in this particular setting. It seemed to recapture that for me. And yes, I get the pacing on this. It is not as exciting to just be sitting around talking about the memory of a night, with a drunken Baratheon. But at the same time, they really brought it down to a human level, which is what the series has always been about. It's like a people, and that just like trying to get on, like amidst all the games that these lords play with each other. There's been the people there. It's a different perspective on the world, but they've done such a great job with how they portrayed it, and has it kind of redeemed, those last two seasons of Game of Thrones, the last three, I guess, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
They had their problems, but again, it stems a lot from George R. R. Martin just not finishing those books.
Yeah.
It was, promising, like, don't worry, even if I don't, I've told them how it ends and that, but like the end of that we got, it didn't feel like the books.
And it was only like, if you give someone plot points, they can only do so much with that, right? Like the dialogue and the major swings are only gonna, like, they have to create that connective tissue, and I don't think they did that. Sure. Also, it felt rushed, which is weird because
it felt very rushed, and it felt like there was, it almost felt like there was too many hands in the pot. It's like this was supposed to be huge. They needed those, Benioff and Weissman to be, focused on in that, but at the time we all know and that they were thinking about Star Wars money.
Yeah.
So yeah, I at the very top of the last season, there was a very much a lack of integrity in the creative directions that it took. But again, like I said, if we'd just had those two books finished, it would have been way different. Way different ending.
I also wonder what it would have been like if the last season was 2 seasons. Like, because the turn of Danny was really abrupt. There are things that didn't built. Like, like, sure, that's done. We don't even have to talk about it. Those were all like hour plus episodes, right? This season, most of the episodes were 30 something minutes, and nothing felt rushed. Like that's the brilliance of this season, like this show, is that every minute that was on there felt like it mattered. I don't think I ever felt like I was just sitting there being like, oh man, I should be on my phone. This is a show that I watched. I wasn't on my phone. There wasn't that Netflix Matt Damon thing, right? Where they had to keep on repeating stuff. Because if you missed something, you missed it. And that sucked for you. And like,
I know.
I quickly learned in the first episode, I just had to watch it. And I love that. I love that.
Also, how great is it with like, you know, like we get all those interesting little moments and that, especially into the culture of these people and that, you know, it's like with the, you know, the singing, the songs, all the songs are dirty, by the way, you know, that we got the one Lionel is singing in the tent, the one and then girl? The one about the girl. And then how about Egg and that singing that song and that basically about like, you know, the it's the Targaryen line of succession and that, but
oh my God, yeah.
She came out of but he came out of the wrong country and
yeah. Oh my God, it's so it feels so lived in and so real. Like this feels like it could have been part of our history. Whereas, you know, you get into Game of Thrones or House of Dragon, you're like, oh, well, that's too fantasy. Anyway, for me, I'm excited because I know that they're filming the second season right now, which means we'll probably get it next year. Like they filmed this season last year and the turnaround is really fast. Obviously, there's not a lot of special effects. They don't have to do it. This is a smaller scale. It's more intimate, right? And obviously, George R.R. Martin has a lot more material that he's shared with the creators of this show. 11 seasons, possibly. We don't know. I don't know if I want that. I don't want to.
There's this weird pitch from the Ira Parker, I think, that basically like it run for 5. If this show runs for 5 seasons, take 10 years off and then come back. You know, so I don't know how. You know.
But I don't know if I want that.
I mean, like, that does seem to be the natural state of television now. You know, it's like, you know, it's like a show like, you know, that has a lot of popularity in that. It goes off the air and that. They take some time. You know, they did it with Dexter. Dexter came back to gangbuster, you know, ratings and reviews. It was good, actually.
Yeah. The only show I want that to happen is The Expanse, because those last 3 books happen many years later when all the characters are way older. And I want to see that. In 20...
I know.
I'll say 10 years. I want to see that. 10 years. Do it. What was it on at last? Prime. Do it, Prime. You have some good shows on there. Sorry. Yeah. I was saying lots of material to adapt. They're currently filming the second season. Do you think that the show should stay smaller, or do you think it eventually needs to scale up towards the bigger?
See, I think
that's me talking to you because I know where it's headed, at least in the next season. Yeah. Or in the next 2.
Yeah. I mean, it's the curse of like any successful show and that, you know, it's like we talked about the budget being like a quarter of what it was for Game of Thrones and that. And obviously like that sort of a budget makes creative decisions more, you know, creative and you know also it tends to be kind of inspiring, you know, like the whole, you know, what do they say, the motherhood of necessity is whatever.
You
know what I mean. Keeping it small for this, it seems to work better because like, you know, if it is like if they treated this episodically, you know, that could work over like 5 seasons. Keeping it small, keeping it focused on like a single story, you know, because like I said, this only took place within, you know, a matter of days. So if they did the same thing with the next season and the next season after that, make it small, like building up the legend of Dunk, right? Sir Duncan the Tall, because we know, like, you know, this is a 4-page man, you know,
4-page,
you know, we got to see like, you know, how like, you know, an unknown knight, you know, like is still remembered so fondly, you know, 90 years later, you know, and as I said, fondly, you know, because there's a lot of knights that are remembered, but not, you know, someone that even Joffrey says, good on him.
Yeah. I think, at least personally, without going into it, should I say, if this does scale bigger, it still has to feel intimate, right? It still has to feel about it still has to have that feeling that it's about Dunk and it's about Egg, that the main focus is their relationship and what's happening at that moment. Things could be happening around them that's getting bigger, and the battles might get bigger, the set pieces might get bigger, but at the core of the show, it has to be their relationship. That's where I think it needs to move from here. I'm pretty sure
it's not easy. It's not easy to do, but
I don't think that spoiled anything for you. I'm sure you're gonna end up reading these novellas. They're quite fast reads, and they're actually pretty good. Yeah, there you go. Do any final thoughts on this show? Is there anything we missed? Did you want to hit on anyone?
It's hard to.
I think we hit the themes and everything that we really wanted to.
Yeah.
Like I would talk about how awesome the Fossaways were. At least I loved all the Apple puns because I think puns are funny. I liked how I like that Rowan Rowan, right? Ended up becoming what's his name? Fossaway's wife at the end. I thought that was cute.
Oh my god, yes.
Like there's so many good like minor performances. The puppeteer who you'll meet later is also quite good. I thought she was fantastic. Sorry.
You know what? If we're speaking of future seasons and that, I really hope they do delve a bit more into Sir Arlen and the backstories and that, because like the stuff that we did get in the season, we didn't even talk about like the whole backstory of his childhood, right? And losing his best friend, and like having Sir Arlen come out drunk out of like a whorehouse and basically like kill two men in an alleyway, saving him, and not like guards,
those were King's guards.
What? Yeah,
they were gold cloaks,
and like, they were gold cloaks, and for him being like the honorable knight and that, like he is such a vicious, dirty fighter. yeah, fair. Yep.
So, do we want to do score out of 10? We don't normally do that, but this is a solid up there. Let's do this. Do you recommend it? This is what we normally do. Do you recommend it? Who would you recommend?
Absolutely. I don't know. I would recommend anybody who got burned out from Game of Thrones or who felt a little disaffected by Game of Thrones, and that, because despite the series and that and the way it ended and that, it was like it wasn't a pivotal thing in people's lives at the time. As far everybody loved that Sunday night premiere. 9:00 time for Game of Thrones. Everybody was sitting.
We used to have watch parties at my house. Like we would
watch parties.
It was crazy. Remember watch parties? That used to be a thing.
I know. I know.
Yeah, no,
damn you, COVID.
Seriously, I would recommend it. I think most people who like it more intimate story would like this. Anyone who likes the fantasy setting would probably really like this. I do. There are a little bit too many poop jokes than I would have, wanted.
Oh,
but
they were a little heavy on gross out sight gags.
Yeah. I hope they move away from that. I appreciate it that they wanted for it to feel different. I do like that they never played the full Game of Thrones theme until when Baelor took Duncan's side. I thought that was a brilliant use of that theme, because every time they tried to, it would just end up being a shit joke or a dick joke or something. I thought that was really cool.
And how brilliant a move was it that they thought, you know what, we're not going to do a theme song for the show.
Yeah.
This song has no.
We didn't even talk about the music in the last episode that totally subverted everything. Oh man, there's so much good on this in this series. Like I really hope people watch it. That's what I hope. Yeah. I hope people aren't.
As someone disaffected by the end of the series and the frustration over GRM's lack of output, giving us closure as fans, because part of me still craves that, the closure in the novels and that. I would still recommend this to anybody and everyone because it is on its own. It is a great series. For sure. Did you want to talk about House of Dragon? We don't have to. It's already 11. We'll talk about when we get to the series. I assume we're gonna watch it. Yeah. I'm gonna watch it. We have that this week. We get a new Monarch
I just finished the first season, which was incredible. I don't know why I slept on that.
It was a good show. It was a good series.
I did not think that they would connect to the movies as much as they did. And it didn't feel like it was forced in. It felt like it fits in the world. It has, what's her name from The Expanse? I did not realize that. What was her name? You know who I'm talking about, right?
Oh, which one? Shoot. Was it Naomi?
Naomi. It was Naomi.
Was it the one? Yeah. Dominique Tipper.
Yeah, Dominique Tipper was in that.
Yeah.
And I started watching a movie with not The Rock, Dave Bautista and Jason Momoa on Prime. I don't know what it was. Wrecking Crew.
Right.
And Bobby.
Yeah, the Wrecking Crew.
Bobby from The Expanse is in it. But in a nothing role. And I was like, what? You're amazing. You should be in more.
You don't do that to Bobby. Come on.
She was also in the Moana movie. Or apparently she's in the Moana movie, the live action one. I don't know. Anyway, that's not important. We're not talking about that. We're done. We're talking about Night of the Seven Kingdom, which you out there should watch. And if you're at this point in this series, in the episode, you probably watched it. Or we just spoiled everything for you. But even if we did spoil it, go watch it because it's that good. I might actually rewatch it. It's not a long series. There's six or... Nope. There's 6.
Like the first episode's 41 minutes. Everything else it concludes in about a half an hour. So it's like you can polish this off in a Sunday afternoon. Yeah.
I've been at the Lord of the Rings longer than this series, right? In theaters at that. We'll be back. I think we're doing a Survivor podcast because not only is Australia's Survivor premiering, but also the 50th season of Survivor is on this week. So we'll start doing that. I know me and Brent are big Survivor fans. We need to do Monarch. Apparently we need to do Animal Farm based on our chat last night.
No,
we're not going to do that. There's a lot coming out. This is a pretty big and heavy season. So there's a lot to talk about. We also have video games coming out soon that we need to talk about.
We got Lanterns coming out pretty soon, right?
Shit, is that soon? I thought that was in the fall. Is that sooner rather than later?
Is it the fall? I don't know. I
would rather it be in the spring, but we also have Supergirl coming out soon. I thought it was after Supergirl for some reason. If it's March, I'll be even happier. We have coming out soon, which maybe we'll do a week to week. We might have to do week to week for that because From is like one of my favorite shows. Oh, and what's the one? The Bees, the soccer girls. What are we talking about?
Oh, Yellow Jackets.
Yellow Jackets coming back. Oh my God, there's so much.
Lanterns is officially delayed to the end of summer of 26. So
there you go. Lots to talk about.
Someone thought it was coming out sooner. It's delayed.
Oh, one thing I was going to run by you. Do you want to do a Death Stranding 2 review? Because the PC version, which I'm buying, is going to be out next month. So we should probably finally do that review.
Yes, let's do that, please.
Yes, Death Stranding, my favorite game of last year. Your favorite game of last year. Let's do it. All right. For Geeks with Kids, I'm Eric. This is Hawk. Thank you guys for coming out there and listening. Thank you, Hawk, for coming and chatting about this. We'll be back soon.
Oh, this was a pleasure.
We'll be back soon. Talk about something. I don't know. Definitely Survivor soon. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Well, that's it for us this week on Geeks with Kids. If you want to get a hold of us, you can send us an email at podcast@geekswithkids.ca. And don't forget to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/geekswithkids. Follow us on Twitter at geekswithkidscn. Check out our pics on Instagram at geekswithkids. And you can find all of this good stuff on our website at www.geekswithkids.ca. So if you like what you hear, why don't you hit that subscribe button and leave us a comment. This podcast can be found on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, and your favorite podcasting app. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.